but I think religion beats people up and relationship builds them up.
Yeah. He's real good for that.
Yeah. Next time, if you could just talk instead of Hunter.
Welcome to the Beacon House Podcast, recorded live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
So then I was just, boiling the water, getting my spaghetti ready, decided to chop an onion, and then I got maced right in the face. I had no idea. Cutting into an onion, bam, maced.
I had no idea your first name was Elizabeth.
Yeah. I'm from Knoxville.
They're totally and crazy. They kicked me out and maced me.
They kicked me out and maced me.
Guys, do you have any idea how many people have texted me or messaged me this week from other parts of the country asking me if I know that girl?
The moment I saw it on the internet, I went, I hate it. I hate this.
That video that you found, though, where they put it in the Animaniacs? Oh, really?
Oh, no. I don't know about, I think you sent me the Animaniacs one.
The Animaniacs theme song?
It's incredible. But there's so many. Have you seen all the remixes? If you go on YouTube and type you'll get About to the Z, and it'll say Elizabeth from Knoxville, and there are gobs of remix videos.
We have an active member of Breaking Benjamin that spends his spare time here, and we're known for this person instead.
Yeah.
We gotta fix that.
Welcome to social media.
All I know is when people went, pause the video at the beginning and look in her hand, and you see an onion cut in half in a towel, and she just starts dabbing her face with it. I went, she didn't get...
It definitely looks like she had an onion. Have they proven yet if she really had an onion or not?
Does it matter at this point? She partook.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah. She partook, and she got shook.
What? Hunter, we're talking about the girl that...
He's from Knoxville, too.
Now, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, tell them who our guest is today.
Adam Barnhart.
It's a very pastoral thing to say.
Hey, Freedom Hope Pastor.
Woo! Pastor Adam, welcome back to the Beacon House Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What's been,
Someone get me a towel.
You want an onion?
It's been a weird year to ask anybody, so what's been going on? But, barring the obvious, how have you been, my friend?
I've been good, man. It's really good to be back with you all, and I'm excited to be here, but I've been doing really well. Things have been a challenge. I think everybody would agree with that.
Sure.
But
not at all.
No, we're doing well. Doing really well. The church is doing well. I'm doing well. Married a beautiful girl since last you saw me.
Congratulations,
sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, Abigail is the best.
My sister-in-law?
Yeah. And shout out to my son Aiden, who is 13 today.
Hey.
Whoa. Happy birthday,
Yeah,
teenager.
it's
Get ready
tough.
for the angst.
Feel
Yeah,
free to put some sad music in here, Spencer.
I woke him up this morning and I was like, hey, bud, how's it feel to be 12? And he goes, I'm a teenager, Dad.
Oh, zing.
So, yeah.
Get ready.
We're there already.
It's going to be tough.
So, but God loves me because it was 2021 before that happened.
Yeah. That's good. Oh, man.
What have you guys been up to?
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
Dude, that's really good. I think that's a better year than most people can say they've had. Got married, child turned 13. Tell us what else has been going on. Tell us about the church, man.
Yeah, so the church has been growing. We actually got to move to a bigger space because we outgrew the one we were in, which I think is awesome.
It is awesome.
Casey came out and shot a video for us, so that was awesome. Savannah's done some work for us on our logo, so we're grateful for that. Hunter shows up. I don't know that he contributes much more than that, but excited. We're actually working on an app right now.
Oh.
So yeah, I'll show you. Actually, let me.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Your listeners can look with you.
Hey.
Everybody.
This is a visual podcast.
That's a cue for
Hunter
everyone.
says that all the time.
Everyone pull out your damn phone right now.
It's not done yet. That's just the prototype.
Yeah, you're
see
getting
what you think.
behind the scenes
Oh,
stuff.
wow. This looks really, really good. I'm looking at it right now.
What does it look like? Does it look like an app?
Can you guys see? Have you not seen it?
Describe it.
I saw it.
Describe it for the listeners. They don't have.
No,
great.
it's very good, and there's object oriented content. At the top, it says "Get Connected." Below that, to the left, sermons. Below that, directly adjacent to that, prayer wall. Below that, pastor's journal, give, worship. It scrolls down the bottom, total pursuit, and then the very bottom right, Kingdom Kids. Can you tell us a little bit about what all those do?
Yeah, so get connected, obviously. We just want to plug in with people and get to know folks and see where we can help them. And really just, I think relationship, if 2020 taught us anything, I think it would be the value of good relationships.
Amen.
And the importance of being connected, being plugged in with people that are, to be honest with you, not toxic.
Yep.
Sure.
And that's not always church people, I'll say that. Anyway, moving on. Sermons are obviously the sermons. Prayer wall, obviously the prayer wall. I'll tell you the thing I'm the most excited about in the app, and I really didn't intend to come in here and just kind of plug everything, but is the pastor's journal. When I talk to people, one of the things there that I get asked a lot is like, what are you studying? What are you looking into? What's really on your mind right now? And so we created the pastor's journal to be an opportunity for people to kind of look behind the curtain and just kind of see, what am I looking at? What am I studying on? What am I focusing my time, talent, and energy on? And I don't know that that's going to help anybody with anything, but I think it pulls back a little bit of the veil and at least knocks some of the pedestal out that people put most pastors on. And like we're still learning. We're still on this journey too. We're still looking into stuff. And so
I think that's really smart. And there's, again, I have to relate everything to music because that's my background, but I remember like learning a lot of music, and at some point when you get pretty familiar with your heroes or your mentors, at some point, if you want to know more, you've got to look at their mentors or their inspirations or their. So you sort of look at the influences of your influences, and I think usually anybody that's really seeking will do that. So I think that's really cool, man.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. I don't know that it'll matter to anybody else, but one of the things that I'm really, really big on is the idea of being transparent. I think a lot of churches are designed in kind of this, like, there's a mouthpiece and a bunch of wallets and just trust us.
Yep.
And I think that, unfortunately, trust is earned and easily broken. And for a lot of folks, especially with church, it's been broken far more times than it's been earned. And so one of the things that I'm really pressing our whole staff and our whole culture about is transparency, and not simply talking about it, but things like Pastor's Journal, things like my availability, and just being available to people and letting people come in and see where I'm working, what I'm working on, what are my resources, and not trying to be so guarded. I think that's one of the missteps of a lot of pastors is kind of allowing themselves to be in that secluded, untouchable, unapproachable kind of position. And so, anyway, for what it's worth, I'm just kind of trying to press back against that with some more transparency.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, man.
Well, I mean, me and Hunter and you're all in like a men's group chat. And I know it's mainly for your all's Thursday.
Shout out Freedom Hope Men.
Yes.
Yep.
And I know it's mainly for your Thursday get together, and I don't really attend those often. But the other day I sent a picture of like how I'm now studying and trying to do like a daily thing where I'm taking, because I got a devotional for Christmas, and I'm taking the devotional, and your reaction was all I needed. Like how excited you were about me doing that. I was like, I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right. Pastor Adam's all about it.
Well, and it excited some of the other guys. And one of my great frustrations as a pastor is the idea that people assume that I'm supposed to know everything and their job is just to show up. Our faith as Christians should be something that is interactive. It's something that we as individuals are involved in, a personal relationship. And you don't have relationships via someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so just the idea that you would take your time and be devoted and dedicated and take it serious enough to say, I really want to unpack what the Bible has to say. I really want to see what is the context, first of all. Like, what is the historical context? Who's writing it? What was going on? What are the cultural implications here? Original language is an important thing. I told you before when we talked, though, one thing that I caution people on is there are a lot of folks who get really caught up in this. You got to go back to the original. You got to go back to the original. I actually said in a debate or a conversation with a guy not long ago that I might as well just burn this. I might as well just get rid of my English Bible, because if I need the original language, there's no point in reading this.
Yeah.
I have to learn Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic and so I think that's a trap. And so I was excited to see where you said, like, I'm going to read it in the Bible.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to pick a word, and then I'm going to dig deep on that.
Yeah.
I think that's super helpful.
Can you give us an example? What did you discover?
So the thing with the
I think
concordance
that's very interesting.
Well, the thing with the concordance that I found interesting, that's the person who gave me the concordance showed me, was like the first devotional I had was about Mary giving birth to Jesus on Christmas, and the star. It kept talking about the star. So I took that and I read the passage in the Bible, and then took the word star, looked it up in the concordance, and there's 3 different translations for the word star in Hebrew. Because I was like, how can one translation have 3 different Hebrew words to it? That's what I found fascinating.
Yeah.
But I definitely took what you said about getting lost, and I was like, yeah, I got to make sure to not go too far into it, but also with me, you guys know, my mind loves to wander, and I love doing the what ifs and the different, this, that, what could be and things like that. So.
Man, and I've said this more than once. I think that's one of the most amazing things about the Bible and the translated text, whether you go back to Greek or whatever, and the advent of the printing press, and people talk about how a lot of skeptical people talk about how down over the years that they've lost the meaning through translation, and is it the King James version? Is it the NIV version? What about that? People that try to tear it down often go to those things, or they go to, it said it's okay to have slaves, it's okay to beat your wife, it's okay to do, they pull all these things out of context, and they attack the scripture with that. But if you ever have really looked into it, and again, I'm not trying to convert anybody here. I know that we have some listeners that are not religious, and that's fine, and but I feel like most of our listeners are at least critical thinkers, so maybe we could kind of come in on that. We can at least agree on that platform. And the thing about the Bible I think that's cool is that it's translatable and relatable on all those different... So if you've got somebody, for instance, Casey, that's like you, that your mind tends to wander, and if they don't have some kind of a concrete... meaning for something like the star or whatever, it tends to kind of lose them, or it can be a little, if you do choose to dig into it, it's there. If you have a different kind of person, they will just take it at face value, and all they need to hear about is the star, and to them the star has meaning. It's all automatically symbolic, and they don't need for it to be broken down into Hebrew or whatever. It works that on that side of the coin also. But I feel like I feel like I learned this a long time ago, like probably the early 90s, when I started looking into theology and started reading texts from George MacDonald and stuff like that. But basically that the Bible works in many different ways for many different people. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. And usually the people that try to discredit it by pulling weird, archaic examples out of it are missing that point, that the word could mean something different. And if you really choose to look into it, or find it's fit for you, it usually works for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a lot more universal than you think, And that's not a allusion to universalism, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, it's like one of the words is fear. Like people feared God. Well, like looking up the translations and like talking to people, Savannah being one of them, is that's not supposed to be like a boo or like a horror movie fear. It's like something so incredible and powerful and like almighty that you like bow down, and it's not the normal translation of fear that we think.
It doesn't necessarily mean like a anxiety-driven response. It could just mean like when you see somebody that's like a confident Christian, and you've heard somebody say like, he's a good God-fearing man. Well, he doesn't look like a dude that's afraid. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a reason that terminology exists.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about scared fear. There's a platitude there.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, but I kind of want to backpedal just a little bit, because the last time Adam was on, it was a very interesting episode because you started off by apologizing to me, if I believe correctly.
That is correct.
And then after the podcast, you pulled me aside and you're like, I'm starting a podcast with my church, and I want you to come on and talk because I would love to get somebody who doesn't believe what I believe in on it. Well, that has now changed, and I can no longer be that guest.
That is good news.
But I'm fascinated.
Also, do you like how this is like the 9th time he's told the story of how you apologized to him?
Is it on the podcast?
It just keeps coming up over and over again.
I don't
Well, but
think
hopefully
I don't know if I've done that.
Hopefully more than your listeners focus on that, they recognize how impactful it can be to own it when you've been wrong.
That's good. See, there now the story's worth something rather than just to go ha ha ha.
I wasn't doing it as a ha ha ha. But while we're
Adam
here,
said he's sorry. Well, because I remember, I'm pretty sure the first time you were on here, you really busted Casey's balls.
I did.
Yeah.
I absolutely did.
Yeah, you put me through the ringer.
And that also can be very transformative.
Fair.
Go on.
No, since then, I mean, we've talked multiple times once I, started down this path. And I just, ever since then, you've been like, I want to be back on the podcast. Like, I want to come back on the podcast. Now that you're there, I want to be back.
But I can't come often because it becomes a theology episode. And Spencer's like, I love you. And shout out to Beacon House.
And I do love you.
Shout out to Beacon House for being brave enough to have this conversation.
We can change the microphone into a cross and just do this
legitimately.
all the time.
I think there's a whole lot of podcasts that would really stray away from this, sincerely. Yeah, and so shout out to Spencer and all three of you guys for being willing to have this conversation.
I gotta say, really, Hunter was one of the guys who, at least out of the three of us, who early on, before we really had any idea of what we wanted to talk about or what we were doing, and we kind of just came in here just with fresh ideas and whatever we were experiencing, we talked about. So, like, if we were having a crisis of faith, or if we were having, if we were particularly mad, usually the episodes where Casey was mad about something, but then Hunter often would have, you would usually talk about just things like in the art or the comics, sci-fi realm, that kind of stuff. But we just decided early on, Hunter would always go, anybody's safe to talk. In here, you're safe to talk about whatever you want to, So like we did 140 episodes of Casey being
angry at the world,
or an agnostic or an atheist or whatever you considered yourself. Deism, or but like, so I mean, there was a long time where we didn't all agree on at least that one thing,
sure,
and we were still trying to make it where anybody could talk about whatever. So now that Casey has chosen a different path, like we're still okay to talk about whatever. Yeah. So I would never want to have a podcast go, we can't have that.
No,
we can't have that on here. We can't have that on here. I mean, I would have somebody come in here that was like, disagreed with everything we say just to have an intelligent conversation.
We actually did have somebody that came on who pretty much disagreed.
Who's that?
We'll talk about it afterwards. Okay. It's somebody that came on we wanted them to do a certain topic, and they decided when they got here they didn't want to cover that topic.
I had that a couple times.
Yeah. But I want to. So today's topic, if I could pull this out of all three of you gentlemen,
go for it.
I want to talk about.
I don't know if that's a good idea to do with that.
No.
We have a pastor here. I think you should.
I've been gassy all morning.
I'm going to rake you across the lawn, buddy.
Adam, you've heard the story about Hunter blowing up the bathroom and the guys.
I don't know if he has. It rivals the movie theater.
I haven't, but we'll
tell it after the episode.
Yeah.
Clearing out a new release movie.
That was that one.
What? We heard that? You really
we'll talk afterwards.
Afterwards,
yeah.
As soon as we wrap up
the episode,
we have far more important things to discuss.
Yeah, this is going to be a real heavy episode with lots of credence. And as soon as we're done, we're going to talk about Hunter's flatulence.
So I want to talk about Hunter's farts. No,
I knew it.
I mean, you do see your life flash before your eyes when Hunter farts. So you meet Jesus.
That's right.
It happens.
It does have a certain supernatural quality.
It does, yeah.
It's a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. He comes in with a mask on. I'm like, for COVID? He's like, no, Hunter farted.
It's really like being by the burning bush.
So I thought it would be interesting with Pastor Adam here, to talk about not only being a Christian in 2020 or in this time, but becoming and rediscovering your faith in 2020, because we've had this.
You might be the only guy.
I might be
that felt better about things in 20.
Well, and the thing is, and I don't want to name any names because I know certain people listen to this podcast, but some people who we all call dear friends have given me a lot of shit. Not a lot of shit, but have passive aggressively been
the Players Tavern.
No,
just good. Edit.
But it's very interesting to be like in 2020 to see somebody and they're like, oh, so you're a Christian now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on this path, I'm rediscovering my faith, and they're like, interesting, or wow, that was really quick. Like you meet this girl and she wants you to be a Christian. It's like she wanted it, but I wanted this for myself. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know it. I was lying to myself, and people being like, well, that didn't take very long. Like. Isn't there like a process? I feel like this should take longer.
That blows my mind about anybody that's known you for a long time, though, because you settled on deism, but you had always been open to other things, and you explained why you became a deist early on, and it made logical sense. So you never closed that door. The idea that people were like, "Oh, you changed your mind? Must be because of some lady." Like,
Or when something happens and like, they see something on the news and it's Christian related and they're like, how does this make you feel? And it's like, really no different.
Yeah.
Like
Honestly,
I'm not a different person. I promise.
I never ever thought that you were ignorant enough to just write this all off as an accident. Mm-hmm. You're just not that kind of a guy. You believe too much in other things for everything to just be an accident. I think you were just probably at the point where you didn't necessarily want to face or acknowledge your responsibility to it or its involvement in your personal life. Like you were like okay with the idea that there could be a creator God, I think, but you just didn't want him telling you what to do. Like
possibly.
I think maybe that was, and I mean, I say
a little
that
headstrong.
I say that. Well, also you had a lot of examples of people using religion ignorantly. Like every time we would go, so the Bible, you would go, oh yeah, did you see on the news what the Bible did this week? You had a lot of really good points. And again, I said this a million times. I got a lot of good friends that are atheists, and they're smart as fuck. And they literally have a lot of. I mean, they can go, oh yeah, religion did this week, and I go, I know, you're right.
Yep,
you're right. I'm not trying to sell you religion. I just hope God still likes you.
Well, and me and you were talking about this before we even started recording. That's the Christian the media wants to see.
Absolutely.
The media will never show this for
like cool Christians.
Yeah, they'll never show level-headed people who like are just they're doing it for themselves. They're not trying to force it on anybody else. But if somebody has questions, you three are here to answer questions.
Like when Chris Pratt wins an award and he goes on the award show and goes, I just want to thank God, who by the way is real. The headlines are never like, oh, Chris Pratt showed us a side of Christianity that's actually kind of cool. It goes, Chris Pratt hates trans and gay people.
Yeah, by the way, if you didn't know, he also hunts and kills animals. So it's whatever they can.
It's all the media. Like when Tulsi Gabbard introduced that bill to protect women, and they're like, Tulsi Gabbard introduced anti-trans legislation, and they're like, whoa, dude, come on, They definitely want people to not like the church. What's your take on that, Adam? Like the popular media and the social media just constantly trying to turn people away from religion. What do you think
Watch
their
this
angle
week's
is?
episode of Freedom Hope's sermon series.
Yeah, so funny you would ask. Spent the first 10 minutes of the sermon telling everybody what I think about politics.
First half. I ran slides. It's not a dig.
I would say I will say this, and I want to be careful how I say this, but I think it requires a certain level of blind ignorance to take other people's words for something that you refuse to be willing to experience for yourself.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot that's portrayed in the media and social media and people's opinions that, like, if it was you or I, we would have a totally different opinion about. Let me give you this example. Talked to a friend of mine several years back that's come now to a relationship with Jesus, but I asked him what he had against the church and Jesus and all this, and he said, Christians. I said, look how y'all treat each other. Look how you talk to each other. Look how you behave. And I asked him this question. I simply said to him, well, let me ask you, if I met 3 or 4 people that know you, and they were all telling me all these different things about you, and I decided I didn't like you, having never met you, having never talked to you myself, would you be okay with that? And he said, no. He said, you don't know me. You know what they think about me. You know what their opinions of me are, but you don't know me. And I said, I think Jesus says the same thing to you.
Yeah, and I also would like to add, when a lot of people go, well, look how Christians treat each other. I think humanity itself has those problems. Like, a lot of people treat each other badly, or they're in it for their own best interest, or they talk about each other behind their backs. It's not just Christians. But I think once somebody decides that they want to try and be a Christian, once somebody decides that they're going to adopt some of those principles or carry a little bit of that responsibility, then everybody goes, oh, well, now you can't do this. Now you can't have, you have to eat fish on Fridays, or you've got to do this, or, oh, now you can't say that thing about that guy, or now you can't laugh at a dirty joke, or now you can't. It puts them under the microscope. Would you say that?
Yeah,
I pointed at
absolutely.
Casey.
I honestly, like, it's been very interesting. Also, there's certain people who,
like, you used to be like, I love George Carlin, and like, go, actually now I'm like reading the Bible. People go, well,
can't like George Carlin.
Can't like George Carlin anymore if you read the Bible. Blah, blah, blah,
Honestly, he's still my favorite comedian.
Sure, he's still funny. Yeah,
he slays when it comes to. I mean, you
don't have to agree with everything somebody says to find the magic in it. Yeah.
Like, well, and that's like Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, all those. I mean, I believe at one point Dave Chappelle was Muslim, and I think he's now off that and onto something else. Who knows? But when people, like, oh, I don't like Dave Chappelle because he's Muslim. It's like, why? It doesn't matter what he believes. Mm-hmm. But it's just interesting in 2020, going on this journey and rediscovering my faith and having, honestly, there's certain points where like people will talk about their families or their like in-laws being religious, and they're like, oh, it drives me insane. And these are people who I may not have openly discussed this yet with. And they talk about how crazy and like, because they're Christians, how crazy their family is. And it's like, actually, I think your in-laws are just insane people, period. I don't think that it's anything to do with what they believe.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like back then, to have those conversations and be like, yeah, they're crazy because they're religious. And now going,
Yep.
and they're like, yeah, right. And I'm like, yep.
all this talk about like, oh, religion makes people crazy. Sometimes people were just crazy to begin with, you know, like, and they went maybe looking for help in religion, which is kind of what you're supposed to do if you need help, you know. But
that's another thing though. Is like an issue that we're beating around the bush on in this entire discussion so far is the difference in relationship and religion, because both terms have come up a number of times in discussing this before recording and post recording, and that's why. Back in the old days playing D&D years ago, like I can't remember, you said something about me being religious at the time, and I was like, I'm not. I'm a Christian by faith, which a lot of people consider splitting hairs, and I get it because I go to church. I go to normal church and like sing all the songs and stuff, so I understand that it looks that way. But that's what you were saying, Adam, about do you actually know the person? Not, I'm far from perfect. You guys know that listening, but the point is, religion is a box. Religion is a rule set, no matter which religion it is. Faith, by the nature of what it is, comes from within the person, and that is a relationship that you choose to have with whatever deity you're pursuing. And the difference is that in the Christian faith, the God that you pursue is a personal God and a relational God, and will respond to you. There's give and take. It is an actual relationship.
that wasn't in any way a reference to King's X song, was it?
No, but you can send it to me.
They have a song called A Box.
I don't know if you know this, but Spencer relates everything to music because that's just...
No, he relates everything to King's X.
We've released... Well, when you talk about discovering any type of faith and struggling with faith, too, that's another big one that they write about is the struggle of faith, the questions in faith.
I really need to start listening to King's X.
Yeah, you do.
I've heard
so
zero King's X.
Preach it, man.
But, well, and going back, like they were all super religious, like when they were... like the early albums, and they wrote strictly about theology. They wrote about C.S. Lewis. They wrote about stuff like that. I mean, you've listened to it now because Brandon just keeps like pounding.
I'm grateful.
Yeah,
I'm grateful to be.
But then as they went on, they got a little depressed, and then one of the guys came out as gay, and then like it's just you see this transition of their struggle with their own personal mortality and their struggle with religion, and not to mention they're, in my opinion, the best three-piece prog band that ever existed. And I realize Rush is in that category, and I'll stick with it. But they're phenomenal, but they write a lot of songs that make you just go, oh, like there's a song called Lies in the Sand. That one will crack you wide open.
Yeah.
They have a song called Flies in Blue Skies, talking about the difference between either one is one single breath. That kind of stuff. And then they have a song called A Box. And EJ, in our old band in this exact room, used to write, he used to write on the chalkboard over here, whatever, he drew a box and he wrote, "There's no room inside a box." But I think that when they wrote the song The Box, they were talking about exactly what you talked about, Hunter.
Well, I mean, whoa, that felt weird. An easy illustration, though, is...
More audio stuff.
Yeah. A real simple illustration is like, in my opinion, so maybe the pastor can speak to it and you guys from your experiences, but religion is the person who... If, like Casey said, if you're the person that wants to better yourself and you're seeking help, so you seek a religious institution, the difference between the two is religion is the person that goes, you're wrong, this is why you're wrong, and you're messed up, and just like beats you up. And faith or relational, and specifically regarding Christian, is the person that goes, okay, well, let me get to know you first, and then I'm going to love on you no matter what happens. And we're going to discuss whether or not what's going on is your fault, and if it is your fault, what's wrong about it, and how we can get you. They like walk with you. It's not just this book or these pastors say this thing, and therefore, and it's like a sheep just like a bunch of crap at you. It's somebody that's living it, that knows from their own experience struggle and shares that vulnerability as well. Again, relationship. all the way through is the difference.
Right.
Yeah, I've actually preached from the pulpit several times, and I think it really is this simple. Some of you may not want to hear this, but I think religion beats people up and relationship builds them up.
Yeah. He's real good for that.
Yeah. Next time, if you could just talk instead of Hunter. I think I got the blur.
You got the blur.
You guys.
Take it from him.
I will.
Take it.
At some point.
You guys so much.
Then again, he edits it, so he gets the pick.
No, I always pick the best one. It's never me. But anyway. No, I totally get I like both of those explanations, but go on, Adam.
Well, I was just going to say the whole idea of religion is that I can adhere to a certain set of rules and restrictions and be my own savior. And if that's the case, then I don't need Jesus.
Yeah.
So relationship is the pivotal point of Christianity. I would add, too, somebody said something earlier about religions and whoever you're pursuing or whatever. I just think one of the things that's really cool about Christianity is the idea is it's one of the only, it might be the only, I just don't want to misspeak, where your creator pursues you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I think there's something to be said for that.
Very interesting.
A lot of these other, at least based on my studies, and they're not exhaustive. Somebody can call and come talk to these guys when I'm not around, and that'd be fine. I don't know exactly about every other religion that's ever been. I don't. But I know in most of the ones that I've studied, there are things that you're required to do, and you're pursuing certain things and certain elements. And I think with Christianity, it's really cool because the Bible says that you're pursued. Mm-hmm. That God comes after you, that he desires that relationship with you. And so, yeah, I think that relationship is what it's all about. And I really think, especially in our current cultural, political, relational climate, I think that the idea that we would pursue other people is really powerful.
Absolutely. And man, I was going to say, like, we would be remiss if we didn't, ask you for your thoughts on, speaking of our current social and political and, pandemic, the world we're living in today, especially after the insanity that just happened in the Capitol and just the state of America right now. What man, like, and I'm trying not to make this the worst loaded question anybody's ever asked anybody.
No, you're good.
But like, I guess maybe a good way to phrase this would be, how are you counseling people at your church on just how to deal with it? I don't want to say tell every one of our listeners what to do, but like, when people have been coming to you, certainly looking for guidance, like what have you been telling them lately?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. One, I've tried really hard to remind people that our help doesn't come from Washington, D.C. Point blank, period. Our help does not come from Washington, D.C., and whether it's a red person or a blue person in the White House that... So what I said this morning, let me just phrase it this way. Our help doesn't come from Washington, D.C., and my Savior hung on a cross. He didn't sit in a White House. Mm-hmm. And I just think that it's really that simple. I think we have to get back to a place of perspective. And I actually went kind of on a tangent this morning, and I was talking to my people, and I said, when I pray for you all, oftentimes I pray that you would care as much what the Bible says as you do what CNN and Fox News say.
Amen.
I say things, or I pray for my people that they would love the Lord as much as they love arguing, that they would spend as much time in the Bible as they do in social media. And I think those 3 points of counsel, if you will, are the ones that I continue to come back to. I mean, what is your intake of what the Lord says, and what is your intake on what people... And by people, I mean the media, which I don't care which way you lean, left or right. I really don't, and forgive me if that's too harsh, but it's all loaded. Either way. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have a viewership that they're trying to keep.
It's a business, yeah.
And it doesn't pay well to go against the grain of the people that are putting, money in your bank account. And so... like Casey said earlier, I think for that reason, I'll probably never be on one of these major shows, and none of us in this room would, because we represent a kind of Christianity that is based on relationship and not rules, and that recognizes that our humanity is a precious thing, and the idea that we're all different with different insights and different expressions, different feelings and responses. I mean, I think the idea that so many people, I used the example not long ago, if you look at a replay in sports,
Yeah.
depending on which team you're for, you see two very different things. It was a catch if you want that team to win, and there's no way that could ever be a catch if you don't want them to win.
That's
and
right.
We're both looking at the exact same thing. I think that's a testament to how awesome our Creator is, that we could look at the same candidates and have two very, very different opinions that are completely unrelated to anything they've actually said or anything they've actually done. It's just simply, I like this guy or I like that guy, or, and it's so silly. It's really...
And I think there's a big opportunity if we could get to the point where we would listen to each other. There's an opportunity for learning there.
Yes.
The fact that there are other opinions, there are other sides of the story. When people go, "Hey, I really like this guy," and somebody goes, "Well, I don't like that guy too much." If you would go, "Oh, how come? Tell me what you see." I don't see that. Help me understand your side of it. Everybody would walk away from that smarter. I think the big problem is nobody's doing that these days. But here's I read a quote, man. I typed this out, and I wanted to. Talk about this today on the episode. For a lot of people, some people are at odds with the relationship because they just don't feel like they have time to fit that responsibility into their lives and just things like that. And I read a quote, and it said, "Everyone worships. If not a God, then they worship their own thoughts and ideas. If it's not their own ideas, then it's someone else's ideas. They may also worship at the altar of fear or weakness, but rest assured, in one way or another, everyone worships." And so I guess that really spoke to me in the terms of like people that just feel like they can't fit it in. Well, you're already worshiping something.
Yeah.
And I think if you would question like the source, kind of like you said, the relationship, where are you getting your information from? Where are you giving all your attention to? Is it terrible things on social media? Is it something horribly an escape like alcohol or something like that, addiction that gets you away from the things you really need to think about or fixing yourself or whatever? Or, you're already putting that energy somewhere. And if if anybody that's afraid to look at things like religion or the Bible or going to a church or whatever, or even talking to that friend like Casey about something he's been through recently that might actually shine a light on what they're dealing with, if they would kind of look at, you're kind of already doing it. You're just doing it somewhere else,
I get in trouble because one of my favorite things to say is you'll always have time for what you make time for.
Absolutely.
And people don't really appreciate that, I guess. But it's funny because it's the same people who say, I'm too busy or I don't have time for that never fail to be on Call of Duty at night or call me to tell me how the UT football game went.
Exactly.
Or to call me and say, hey, we decided just to go up to Pigeon Forge randomly. You want to meet us and play putt-putt or ride go-karts? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It's the same people who always seem to have time for what they want to do that are the first ones to tell me they don't have time for anything that they don't want to do. And I think there's a level of realism that we have to get to with ourselves where we just recognize that, like, I don't want this because I don't want this.
Exactly.
And stop making excuses. I'm tired, to be honest with you, especially after 2020. I am tired of Christianity being the go-to camouflage for cowards and critics and crazy people.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to just say, oh, well, I'm a Christian, and so I'm going to be really just a real jerk to you, and I'm going to really mistreat you, and I'm going to be judgy, and I'm going to be hateful, and I'm going to tell you everything that's wrong with you, and then I'm just going to tell you that I'm a Christian. And it's like, that doesn't cut it for me.
Absolutely.
You don't have permission to be rude. You have permission to speak truth. And the old adage is still as true today as it was when it was first coined. Nobody cares what you know until they know that you care.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's really just that simple, I think. So, again, everything comes back to relationship. And people will listen if you're willing to invest. But the idea that we're just going to walk in a store and be like, hey, everybody, you should love Jesus, and like that would do anything is almost kind of silly to me.
And I think that attitude, that exact knowledge and that attitude is very important today because it's not the same world as it was 200 years ago or even 100 years ago or even 50 years ago or even pre-internet. Things are a lot different now, and it's hard to just sell people on stuff like that. People aren't just standing in empty rooms looking for something to believe in. People are now on their phones constantly, 24 hours a day. They're inundated with knowledge and information. I think you're absolutely right. You've got to sort of be a little different, in order to really be. And I'm not saying everybody's necessarily out there trying to convert everybody every second of the day, but like just leading by example. being the example of the Christian who's not crazy, who is a relationship-based faith and that sort of thing. You've got to be open-minded like that. I think that's fantastic, man.
So you were saying something, Casey, earlier about 2020 and catching stuff from people and
Catching crap.
I just catch flack.
Yeah.
So where were you going with that thought, though?
I just want to know what you guys think about being Christians in 2020. Like, I mean, I feel like 2020 was one of those years that people were most divided than I think we've ever been as a nation. And I think a lot of people on one side blame religion on the other. And I hate to say it, but it's the media.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way the media portrays it, where you have people seeing what happened on Wednesday in the Capitol and being like, that's Christian people. When it's like the pastor at Cedar Springs said today, there was nothing Christian or godlike about that.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, a crazy person could run down the street screaming, God, 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 God. That doesn't make him a Christ-like.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like it's just not true. That's my take on it is just because one side claims to be associated with the church, that doesn't mean that there aren't religious people on the left.
Yeah.
Democrats go to church too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're just, man, again, like you said, it's the media that's just selling this big thing. And you just got to be able to, I think you've just got to be able to see the truth in all of it. You know, like if you are it's easy for you to write somebody off that quick because of a select few that are on TV, you're probably missing a lot of things.
Yeah.
If you're just taking that tiny little bit of information as the truth, or I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Hunter, what about you?
Well, I mean, it was really rough for everybody, but specifically with being Christian, because trying to navigate it, trying to adhere to what I believe in and what, you know, my house believes in and how we try to behave, but me being the weakest link when it came to getting bent out of shape by the smallest stuff anybody would do, and then going on tirades at home, and then the stress and pressure of everything driving me nuts, and then thinking, you know, is my faith breaking or have I lost it because I don't feel like I'm acting the way I used to, and like I'm losing a sense of self, and then having to reflect on that and look at everything and pray about it and talk and just sit and go, no, I still believe this stuff is true, so why am I so messed up? And there was a lot of self-focus, which is part of the problem because everything was bad for everybody. But at the same time, it was a weird year for that, because as bad as it was here and everywhere else, it was also, I think, easily on a holistic kind of existential level, the best year of my life. Which, you know, at me if you want, I could use the traffic again. At Barnhart Art Sucks, but but the point is, like, there was a lot of blessing and a lot of like coming in ways that I wouldn't have expected, being rescued from problems or being sheltered from them in the first place. That took, I was able to see them, but it took a lot of times, like talking to Adam or Mom or Libby, you know, daily being like, look at how God did that thing. Look at how God did that thing. And, it, you know, not that I didn't believe that stuff, but I was so busy just being frustrated with everyone that I had stopped looking for it, which is the thing Troy at the church is real good about. Anytime there's any kind of meeting, is one of the things he always asks is like, how did you see God move in your life this week or whatever? And that matters, because if you adhere to the faith at all, it's real easy. And again, I'm guilty last year of having done this. It's real easy to lose sight of it as soon as things get really bad. So navigating it as a Christian, I feel stronger now. And I think it was ultimately really good. And I can see plenty of ways that we were absolutely taken care of in my house, but it was rough too, honestly.
Very interesting, man. Thank you for sharing. Well, guys, we're getting a little close to our time here. Adam, do you have any final thoughts you want to give us? First off, dude, thank you so much for coming in. Mm-hmm. It's just, regardless of what we talk about, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate it.
I always think about you, and you're one of my favorite guys. And thank you so much for coming on.
Beard. Whew, that beard.
He's a sharp-looking guy.
It's a good-looking beard.
He's a good-looking man.
Thank you.
You got any final thoughts you want to extend to our listeners, or tell them a little bit about your church, invite them in, or whatever, invite them to the
anybody
app?
That's interested in checking out the church, we're at 1946 Oak Ridge Turnpike. We meet at 10:45 on Sundays, Bible studies at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Men are with the men and the women with women. We just love an opportunity to talk to you, answer any questions you may have. I want to quickly add a thought to what Casey was asking about with 2020, and I will say, I think that you've seen this pattern over and over again in our history just as people, but the darker and more dysfunctional it gets, the more people seem to start looking for something to bring some order to their lives. And so from a theological standpoint or from an ecclesiastical standpoint, I should say, as the church, 2020 was good as far as people actually plugging in and actually wanting to know. To anyone who lost somebody in 2020 to COVID or anything else, I want to say that I am sincerely sorry that you lost your loved one. That's a really big deal to me. But I want to also say that one thing about 2020 and COVID is I think people came face to face with their humanity in a real way that they hadn't in a very long time. The idea that we're not here forever, and the idea that at any moment something could happen. And I would add maybe even the idea that the things we can't see can be more powerful than the things we can in a lot of ways. And so I think that, at least from that standpoint, I think there was a lot of reason to look toward God and things unseen and just where am I going? What does my eternity look like? And so these are all things that came up through 2020, and I was privileged to have an opportunity to answer. And if these are questions that any of you that are listening have asked, I'd love an opportunity to talk with you all. But guys, it's always awesome to be here, and I appreciate the invite. Hopefully the tech difficulties don't make the episode too crazy.
Nah, it'll be fine.
I'll sweat them out.
Yeah, we'll just have to invite you back next year.
I'll get a big can of cashews and sit there and fix it. Bro, I've eaten so many cashews while editing this podcast.
Honey roasted cashews.
Oh my god, any cashews. Just even a picture of a cashew, I'd probably eat.
Emeralds at the grocery store has jalapeno, dill pickle flavored. No, the jalapeno ones were legit.
What brand are you eating?
Just whatever.
Blue Lagoon?
Huh?
What?
No,
I'm a Kroger guy.
Food City or whatever. Just cashew halves and pieces.
D's nuts. Got him.
Oh my.